Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
I'm Lisa Chanou.
And today we have a very special guest. I almost didn't recognize him out of the red robe. I got to be honest. I was hoping, there was a part of me that was hoping we would get the red robe, but I understand this is also only maybe for our daily astrological check-ins. You know him from Instagram, from TikTok, from his podcast called Conscious Embodiment. It's Dr. Michael Lennox.
Yay! Woohoo! And listen, I wear the red bathrobe in the morning because otherwise I'd be naked. It's 5 a.m.
Hey,
Like, why are you wearing that bathrobe? It's like, because it's morning?
Yeah.
It's cold out?
love a robe, love doing a TikTok in a robe too. I do feel like it brings an intimate but also elegant vibe, and I'm here for it.
Beautiful.
We're so happy to have you.
Yay.
Yes, the algorithm, I'm glad the algorithm brought you into my life because your daily red robe alerts really are just a great start to my morning, and I just
beautiful.
appreciate the work you did. And I should say too, because I've definitely referenced you a few times, probably more than a few times on our podcast, where I'll be like, Dr. Michael Lennox said this, or like a reference. You're my Rolodex of reference folks who I like to follow. But I was doing new moon manifestations last year, and I wrote like about finding my voice. And then I got an email from you. I was like, finding your voice workshop. And I was like, well, that's
a little too synchronistic there to ignore.
Yeah.
I
got the pleasure of taking that. So got familiar with you and been a fan from afar. So thanks for coming into our space.
Well, I got to tell you something. I just had a sense in anticipation of this that this was going to be fun. And I was excited to come on just because I had this sense.
Wonderful.
This is going to be fun, right?
Yes.
Make it fun.
Absolutely.
You know, we're the bad girls of astrology, some might say. You know, we learn a lot through conversation and through our own feelings of, you know, like I think it was last year when Jupiter was in Pisces, when everyone's like, it's going to be so good. And we're like, this is a weird hell. Anyone else? Like maybe too much Pisces energy, dare we can say. So I think having that space to just share what's actually going on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Versus like, of course that sounds good on paper, but how is it playing out?
You know, one of the things that happens out there in the world of astrology, and astrologers looking to put things out there to just get notice and to spread their message. And, social media is like a fishing game. You throw some worms out there and catch clients. And what'll happen is people will grab an idea that's happening astrologically and say, this is what I'll talk about. But in a vacuum, you're missing everything else that's happening that either shifts it or mitigates it or adds a different perspective. And one of the things I get told a lot in my DMs is like, you're so accurate. And it's like, yeah, because I'm talking about everything, not just the one thing that got my attention. So it's like if some beautiful trine is happening in Jupiter and Mars or whatever trining, and it's a great day for expanding your gifts and your work, but some other square is harshing our buzz, but you're not talking about that. You got to put it all together. You can't just grab and cherry pick the thing that you're interested in, like how wonderful it is to have Jupiter and Pisces, because there were other things.
I think too, like in concert with that, I think there is a little bit of fear, and you don't want to fearmonger. You don't want to tell people like something bad is coming. Like everyone needs to, but so it's having that balance of being realistic and how bad can bad be, and those kind of things where it's like we've powered through all kinds of transits. Saying that a square is coming up shouldn't instill fear in people,
No, it really shouldn't, because it's something you've done a billion times before, and it just means yet another moment of an obstacle that we're going to move through. But you know how to do that. We all know how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's also an interesting thing to try to figure out, how do you talk about something that is experienced but also be giving kind of technical language to something. And I think that is something that we really try to do, is like talk about things in a way that you would talk about it with your friends, because also so you can have your own kind of touchstones for how a transit made you feel in your life.
Right.
And,
because
and so then when you hear square, you go, oh, I remember when I felt that square last week, that meant this sort of thing. And not that it means the same thing every time, but I think that is kind of the point of astrology, isn't to be as technical. I mean, it can be as technical as you want it to be, but how do we then integrate that into something that someone knows how to like use it in their life? What does that mean for me on a day-to-day basis? Someone who doesn't know all of the technicals of astrology.
You're absolutely right. The experience that we're having then informs the energy that is generating that experience. One of the things that was really interesting for me to do when I started my podcast, whenever it wasn't that long ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was so used to speaking about astrology publicly while it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the easiest thing I've ever done. That is so natural for me to talk about energy that I'm experiencing in my own body. And because I sit with people on a daily basis, there's that information to inform what I might say, and my own relationships and my own friendships, right? So when I'm doing a daily writing that day for the next day, or in the morning doing my Red Robe Astrology video about the energy that's right there present now, it's the easiest thing ever. But the podcast is recorded a week before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in that wave yet.
We've had similar.
Different.
Yeah, this is like our hell as well, where it's like, so we're talking about, because sometimes we have to bank, like we're three people coordinating. It's like, shit, we got to look ahead at next
that's right.
week. And then it's like, well, it's
when are we talking about?
Yeah, we can speculate of how that could feel or how it's felt in the past, but like it's so much like if we get the chance where it's like, oh yes, it's coming out the next day, that's like the best.
That's
like,
the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you get to speak right from what I would, in my language would be, I get to speak right from my body.
Mm-hmm. My
body knows everything. My body can understand it, and it can explain it to my voice, which then comes out of my mouth. And that's, how I'm good at describing the energy when we're in it. Very different to do that in advance.
Is it like channeling for you? Are you like are you downloading?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Here's how I experience it. It's absolutely a channeling experience, but I need to be very clear. I'm not channeling a disembodied spirit. It's not some other entity or energy that speaks through me or that I get information from. There's a guide. I have sort of named him Teacher. But I'm 59 years old. Like, I didn't learn my inner guide vocabulary till like in the last 5 years. Like, so I've been doing this for years, feeling what happens when I'm asked a question. There's this enormous energy that rises up in my body. My cadence changes. I'm faster. I'm more animated with my hands when this is activated. And this happens when I'm doing a session, or if I'm walking down the street and somebody pulls up and rolls down their window and says, "Which way is Sunset Boulevard?" I get just as activated and excited to answer that question as I am when I'm asked about what's my life going to be based on my chart. Mm-hmm. So in fact, when I'm doing sessions, I've sort of taken to wearing a uniform. I wear t-shirts, colored t-shirts, because I have to change them 4 times a day. I'm so physically activated when Teacher is speaking through me that I just get covered in sweat and have to, change my clothes and, brush my hair between sessions. So the experience that I have on the inside of me is that feels like knowledge that comes through me, not from me. But I, of course, have to know in my human mind all the rules about astrology. But once I'm asked the question, this other energy lights up and starts, doing the talking. And sometimes I'll be sitting in the middle of a session and I'll stop speaking. And someone will inevitably say, "Oh, don't hold back." It's like, I ain't holding back. You just stop talking.
Give me nothing to feed off of.
Yeah. Right. It's just sometimes
class is dismissed.
I wonder.
That's very fire sign to me.
Have you seen my chart, honey?
Yes, that's what I mean. Where I was like, it's very much as a fire person as well. I think like when the energy is coming and directed, there is something that feels very different and very I don't know, like you said, through you, not necessarily disembodied, but also is like, oh, this is like what I'm supposed to be doing right now. This is what this like feels like, and it's not all of the time. The candle isn't always lit, but there Julia, is that.
I love that, because that is what it feels like. It feels like a fire that gets lit up, and every once in a while it just goes out, and I have to stop. And then it gets lit again in 2 seconds. It's not long. It doesn't go out for long. It just might, like, we might be talking about a specific question. And then it's just like, I see a transit. There's no words coming through. I stop for a moment. And then what I'll do to get it back is I'll speak very slowly, technically. I'll be like, all right, I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to say Pluto, change and transformation, making a square, conflict, opposite. I'll speak like that, very rudimentarily. What are the principles here? And then what happens is by doing that, the gas gets turned on and I don't have to work like that. It just comes and flows.
Yeah. I wonder about, because I know you have a doctorate in psychology, and I know there are specific branches of psychology, I'm not obviously that familiar, that talk about where we feel things in the physical body and how we process those things. Is that something you incorporate with astrology? Is it something you've studied?
Golly, you've opened up such a deep thing about humanity, and there's research about this quite in depth, that the people who are successful in therapeutic interventions are people who can understand where in their body they're feeling emotional sensation. And people who cannot do that will not benefit from talk therapy. It's kind of why I don't do talk therapy anymore, because it's just like it's too slow. And so as a psychologist working with human beings through the lens of astrology, knowing how the human sort of behavior works from a theoretical perspective allows me to have levels of conversation with my astrology clients that's also informed by my understanding of humanity and personality through my psychology sort of background. And then of course it allows me to do other work with people in my processing classes where I'm teaching people to do shadow work and self-exploration. And then I get to bring astrology into those spaces, right? So I'm teaching a class on forgiveness right now. Every one of my forgiveness class students now knows where their Venus is placed. Because how can you teach about forgiveness without understanding how you process your emotional body? And that gives a sort of a new layer for people to consider. Oh, my Venus is in Scorpio. That's why I want to kill a bitch. And my Venus is in Libra. That's why I'm good at forgiveness, but my self-loathing is amazing because I'm forgiving so much, right? So the psychology and the astrology has worked really well in a number of different sort of trade-off kind of ways.
Have those always been tied together for you?
That's an interesting question. No, I mean, I didn't get my doctorate. I got my master's in like 2000 and something, right? My early 40s, I got my doctorate. But I started studying astrology in my mid 30s. I got my first tarot deck at 17. I was always the person answering, questions about, life on the playground. I was interpreting dreams by the time I was in high school, and kids would say, what a crazy dream I had. And I read Freud's interpretation of dreams and just decided I had a gift, which I do. And, so I was fully activated in my sense of spiritual tools that drove both how I contextualized my life and ways that I served others before I even stepped into grad school. If anything, I received some flack while I was in grad school because I told my professors I had no intention of becoming a psychotherapist. And they were like, but you'd be so good at it. It's like, I'd kill myself to do that kind of work. I had a Jungian professor who she even had a German accent. She said, oh, so you're a fortune teller. I almost slapped her.
Oh my God.
That felt like an insult.
Yes.
It felt like an insult.
I think it was meant as an insult.
It might have been. So, but the point is that for me, even though I'm a psychologist and I sort of demand the moniker doctor because I earned it, and it's helpful to my business to have that information, who I am as a spiritually oriented person was fully formed before I added the psychology education in there. But that was really by design. Like what I was at a crisis. I was in my 30s. I just broken up with somebody. I was working for Playboy.
Oh,
Vice
heard
president.
of it?
A small little indie magazine.
Yeah,
you know, that we all know.
So I've actually worked for the home entertainment side of things out here in Los Angeles. I was vice president of new business development, which means I took people to lunch and lied to them about that Playboy would one day do business with them. Like I was told, we'll never do business with any of these people. You need to look like you're trying to find business. It was such a
but enjoy Spago, you know, like have
right. Enjoy the meal and, you know, party up a little bit. So I really felt like my soul was being eaten by this job, though it was lovely people and lots of fun as well. And I thought, okay, well, what do I want to do? Well, I know I want to speak. I'm a speaker. I'm an actor by training. I have a BFA in acting. I've been a performer my whole life. I want to talk about spiritual principles in front of people. But like, you don't just become a spiritual teacher overnight. You got to develop some cred for that. I thought, well, okay, I've worked for Business Week, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Playboy, major brands. I'm getting a master's and then a doctorate in psychology. And at that time, a motivational speaker in the corporate world was a thing. Human resources departments were still paying motivational type people to come into their boondoggle sales meetings. And I thought, well, I'll do that until I can develop enough spiritual cred to do, you know, the other. And I wound up getting sidetracked by a television show on dreams and dream interpretation that the Sci-Fi Network put into development in 2002. So in 2003, we had made 65 shows of this like strip show, talk show where I was the dream host and Annabelle Gurwitch was the comedian who made fun of people. And, you know, we did this whole thing and it was canceled after 3 months. It was literally like one of those things like, oh my God, I was born for this. This is my whole life has led to this. This is amazing. I'm going to be rich and famous and talk about dreams on TV. And then I just was nowhere. And it was,
then you woke up.
Right. It's like on a Friday, I'm like on TV and a Monday, the show's canceled. The website's down. They barely even called me to tell me.
Oh my
God.
God.
I went into this sort of dark night. In fact, in the 2 years after the show was canceled, I had like 5 or 6 different workshops and retreats scheduled, all of which got canceled for lack of registration. The world was saying no, no, no to me every turn. But mine, yes, was so clear by the 2 years we spent making the show. It didn't matter that the show wasn't a success. I knew who I was and what I wanted to do. And when the world was saying no, it's like, yeah, well, I'm going to keep going. And something that I thought would take 2 years to sort of develop a vibrant career being of service to people with these gifts took about 10. But we got there. I got there and, you know, found my way.
I appreciate you sharing the L's because I think not enough people share their L's. And there was like, I don't know if you saw this tweet, but it was this author. It was like a recent viral tweet that was like, here's my book reading at Barnes and Noble's, empty chairs, and just like the saddest space ever. And then all of a sudden, all these authors came through on this tweet thread with like, here's my picture of empty chairs. Here's my picture. But like no one shared. We share the highlights.
Yeah, we share the highlights and the successes.
Especially in this era, which is totally where you're expected to share all those things and have this diary of, you know, how you've come up or what have you. So I think it's just a good reminder that it's cool that you still got, I'm on the right path of, I like this thing I'm doing and it isn't, it's just in due time. I did have a question about your chart that's coming up, I think, from everything you've shared in terms of your background with obviously astrology and then the dream stuff, which we'll dig into as well. Cause I mean, look, we need to get over that dreams aren't interesting to talk about as a cultural society. I'm pro dreams, pro weather conversations, baby. Love them both. Keep it. Let's talk about that marine layer going on. Like I'm into it, but do you do intercepted houses for yourself personally? Or
I am intercepted. I have an intercepted Aquarius Leo. I'm a Leo Sun, Leo Venus. Intercepted. Saturn in Aquarius in the second house. Intercepted.
Do you use Placidus?
Usually? I do use Placid, of course. Yeah.
Us too. Yeah.
I think that people don't understand interceptions because if you Google intercepted charts, all you will see is hindered, limited, held back energy. But kids, that's only for the first 40 years. interceptions open up at the Uranus opposition at 42. So between 38 and 42 years old, the intercepted chart says those energies that are like, I call it cookie dough. They're cookie dough in the first 40 years. It's like yummy. It's tasty. Ain't nothing wrong with a snack made of cookie dough, but it's not cookies. The cookies come at 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. And then the person is starting over again. It doesn't go from 0 to 60. It goes from 0 to 60 to 40, and then you start again. Mm-hmm. And that was exactly my experience. At 40 years old, I was in a Kundalini explosion, a dark night of the soul that was also a special, fabulous awakening post the television show. And then my entire life opened up to my Saturn in the second house, which is I value my lessons. I value teaching. I am here to learn, and I want that, and I offer it. And then my Leo, Sun, and Venus, which is as extroverted as you can get, needed to wait 40 years before being as visible as I'm becoming, because I had a lot of softening I needed to do with all of that fire. So I sort of like grabbed the interception idea and ran with it. Where were you going with the question?
I mean, I think you answered it though.
Okay, cool.
Well, because I think we are in like a and it's no shade to like the Hellenistic Renaissance or like whole sign houses. It's now, I feel like, rare. Let's see. And it's now like rarer to meet, I think, in terms of thinking in Placidus. And actually, like, I was looking at the wrong space of your chart at first, but I'm glad you pointed out your second eight. I was maybe looking even more at your 12th and 6th houses, which is not intercepted. It's just so taken with that Gemini Sagittarius energy looking there. Because of the interception
from the.
So actually you took me to the right space, and now I'm like back to where I was actually looking at, which was, I'm just thinking of, in terms of astrology with dreams, like, do you have a spot that you channel it? Like, is this a 12th house thing? Is this a planetary thing? Like, I'm curious if you equate the dream to astrology language and where we might even find dreams in a chart.
Well, first of all, we always want to go to the ruler of dreams, which is Neptune. In fact, I'll throw this in there as a side note. The show failed in 203, and so there was not a lot of movement for me in my professional world in those first few years. But once I started doing workshops and programs, they were what they were. Okay, I'll just say that. And then when Neptune, the ruler of dreams, moved into his home ruling sign of Pisces in 2011, almost instantaneously, I got booked. I was busy. I was doing workshops and classes. And more importantly, the questions I was being asked by dreamers went from like grade school to grad school. Suddenly I was being asked really interesting, deeper questions, and the world was ready to dive in to the dream world in earnest and other spiritual sort of topics and areas when Neptune moved into Pisces. So when I look at my chart, I notice that I've got Neptune in the 11th house in Scorpio retrograde. So that means I've got my sort of access to my spiritual wisdom is a public experience that I share at the community level. So when I think about my childhood on the playground, when I was the person that everybody came up to talk about their problems or to solve challenges that were happening in the sort of grade school community, or even just being in high school and interpreting dreams for people, I see that Neptune in the 11th house leads that. I am to do that and to be that. And then if you look at my chart, you can see that my Neptune then trines my Chiron in Pisces in the 3rd house. Now, I could talk all about the wounding from my daddy and the tone of voice challenges from him, and that I then learned. I had to unlearn my tone of voice through healing wounds. But now think about the idea of 3rd house of communication, Pisces as the connection to the all. And then the wounded healer isn't just about Chiron says where our wounds are going to be worked on. Chiron is also something that lives in all of us. Our inner shaman is Chiron. I happen to have that placed in a house that allows me to speak wisdom about and through those things that I'm learning about humanity. And then North Node in Cancer in the 7th house says when I get past my karmic decades and into my dharmic expression, which I now am in, then it becomes a grand water trine that is completely antithetical to the fire and air that runs the rest of my chart. So I look at my chart and I see two mechanisms. One available from my first breath, fire and air moving through the world like an explosion, and some joy and love and too much energy for most people. And then I see this other sort of watery trine that was all of the wounds in the first half of my life, but became my access to letting teachers speak through me. And that when I'm having that experience, it feels like that grand water trine turns into a mojo vortex of wisdom coming through me. I think Chiron in Pisces in the 3rd house allows me to hear dreams and be in the interpretation of them before you've even finished.
Whoa. Chiron the shaman is an interesting idea. Even it's something I haven't heard, because I think Chiron does get people bummed out or like afraid.
Because it's like if you go off to Peru to do some ayahuasca and you're thinking, and you've never done it before, and you go and you're like, I'm gonna have this luminous, fabulous experience and get in touch with things. It's like, do you also know you're gonna feel shitty and sick and awful when you're done, and you take the pictures in the airport? You're all gonna look like you've been through a storm. Right? Because it's hard work going into the underbelly, but I think of Chiron as shaman because that's what he was for Heracles. He didn't just get wounded and understand wounding. He knew the healing arts and herbs, and he taught everything from combat choreography to how to heal yourself in the woods.
What a hottie. That sounds like a hot man right there.
Love it.
I think it's interesting the way you're talking about the water trine, because I think I'm in the middle of studying for a scuba course, and a lot of the discussion about the water is to let it take you, let the current pull you out a little bit, or do these things that kind of feel unnatural to us. We tend to fight against them, and it doesn't help. It just, you just keep fighting against it until you drown. And I think it's an interesting metaphor for having a spirit speak to you too, because it may feel uncomfortable having a guide or anything that, feels out of quote unquote norm. And being able to lean into that is such a watery path.
I totally get what you're presenting, that without that sort of guidance to sort of allow that the part of you that would feel like, I got to control myself, I not got to know where the ground is and what is up, and then you're in the water and the water says, no, we're moving here, that would be a freaky moment.
Yeah.
What a great sort of an analogy for, surrender and flow.
Totally.
Well, I'm thinking of it as sensitivities, both in an emotional sense and also an ability sense, and how so much of certainly Western patriarchal culture is about not being sensitive and about not,
that's right,
not being open to those sorts of things. And so even if it's they are gifts and they are opportunities, we are still, I think, taught to see some of those things as things to be controlled or stopped, or to be
problematic. If a feeling comes up, there must be a problem. Why do I feel this way?
Yes, this is a weakness. This is something, instead of learning how to be in the flow with those, how to channel those, how to even use them, use other people's as your own, work. But the word sensitivity was coming up for me, which is thinking of water, because I know that would be a very literal, you read it in a book, sensitive, artistic, emotional, but also thinking of it as not supernatural necessarily, but outside abilities too, that you are sensitive to things that other people might not have the same sensitivity towards.
I would say my sensitivity in my body just to energy itself is something that led me to be an astrologer. That I was actually just talking about this morning for my next podcast episode, because someone asked me, could you talk about moon sick? You talk about being moon sick on your podcast now and then. Can you say more about it? Because she had she was flattened by the Libra full moon. And so when I was younger, I used to have a mythos about myself that sounded like this. I would say, I get sick all the time. Not true, but my body felt a certain way periodically that I called sick, because it felt off from the norm or from typical. And my father was very ill physically. And so I had, daddy wounds of like, oh, I'm sick because my father was sick and I inherited that. And that was just bullshit. But so what I found when I discovered astrology was there were days when the energy on my chart was enormous astrologically, and I would feel moon sick, or I didn't call it that then. I just felt this way that I was familiar with. And it didn't take but 4 or 5 of those moments to go, holy shit, I've been calling something that it is not, and I've been calling it something that has me feeling small and pummeled by my body in life. And suddenly it was like, oh my God, there's a language for this. It's just moving energy. Here's a system that describes it. And then when I feel this way and I look at the planets, I suddenly was free of this mythology that I'm always sick, or that there's a problem. And it taught me how to be fluid with everything. Not just how my body felt, but a sense of movement and flow. This will pass.
Well, a Virgo Mercury always thinking they're sick. I'm so shocked by this. Feeling all the effect and worry and weight of the world.
What I would say, what is true and accurate is that I feel everything about my body. I'm also born with Uranus and Pluto in Virgo, and mine is in the 8th and the 9th house. So my relationship with my body is unusual in its physical experience of sensitivity to energy moving. And man, oh man, I'm so grateful for the context for that. And then I have a buddy, Monique Ruffin. She and I speak almost every 2-3 days. She's also an astrologer. And we cackle a lot, because it's like, if I didn't have astrology, I would think I was losing my mind at times. Because it just gets crazy at certain times with energy, but the transits express everything. They just describe what I'm experiencing, and then it's like, oh, this is just energy. We have to move through what we move through, and we're going to feel that. And if we judge it and call it certain things, then we're stuck to that.
One of the things I'm really interested in right now is the astrology of the physical body, and the ancient ways that each body part is assigned to a different sign. And I found something I'm experimenting with, and I wonder, since you're talking about feeling moonsick, having these transits affect you physically, something I'm experimenting with is like, if I see a transit, if I'm starting to feel anxiety around something, say it's like something's transiting in Capricorn, I'll like go for a walk or do something that, or like do back stretches, do things that feel they embody like the physical parts of that sign. Or I'll take a yoga class and I'll like make sure to, for if it's like a Gemini thing, I'll make sure to do a lot of like hand and wrist stretches.
Wow.
So I wonder if you have any interest in this. I know we go to the subconscious world, but how about the physical body?
It's interesting. You're saying this to me here. There's a astrologer on TikTok that's doing a lot about medical astrology right now. She's teaching about medical astrology, and it's been interesting to watch her like ads for her new class, because it's an area that I have not looked at. And in some ways, based on this conversation, I'm thinking to myself, why haven't I explored that more? One of the things that I love what you're talking about is coming through the lens of the archetype has information for you, right? So the sign that something is in and transiting through does tell you how to focus or what to focus on in order to be, free of it. You're getting to add the distinctions of what rules what in the physical body. I think that's probably very powerful. I mean, but I don't really know a lot about it outside the basics. Like I can follow the signs down the body of, head, throat, of the Capricorn bones. But, my knowledge of it is not only limited in general, but what I'm now discovering is that there really is a whole vocabulary that's ancient that talks about the minutia of association to body parts and organs and.
Yeah, I mean, I find that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, Sometimes I'm like, I've like been focusing in yoga on my hands so much that I like miss a thing and, get twist in an ankle or something. But or like, you're so tired afterwards, you get a paper cut and you're like, oh, I was just focusing on that all day for this.
That's funny.
Well, I think we just did our revisit of just sun signs too. And I think we're hitting on like the everything of it all, right? There's the conscious, the subconscious, then the actual physical feeling body, and then this whole other outer space universe that's our dreamland. And I think something that was interesting in revisiting sun signs was even the over identifying of your sun sign can be a hindrance of just about ego and shit, like all those things based on like the who of who we are. So I appreciate in your pod too, Dr. Michael, with the like thinking of like the sun is this kind of conscious living, right? I think it's like a good reminder of what the sun, we're very conscious of the sun. I'm heat stroke from this weekend, from this first sunshine from this weekend. I'm like, yep, it is actually here doing stuff out for us.
I think one of the things that opened up my sense of like my astrology brand does come, this is back to Lisa, the question you asked me earlier, does connect to becoming a psychologist and wanting to share astrology to people through the lens of use this to self-examine, to grow, to look at your healing, to look at your lessons. I don't talk about politics or social, media experiences. Like I had a meeting with an SEO guy. I was like, this is not going to work. Like SEO is not like he didn't know what I meant until he started saying, well, what you need to do is in all of your articles at like a moment like this, if you include in your articles the words Will Smith and astrology chart near it, because he had just slapped Chris Rock. Is like, yeah, you do not understand who I am as an astrologer. I'm not like, I don't. These days I have to start, and I'm struggling with finding my sort of activist voice, because I think there's some wild things going to happen in the United States of America when everybody changes signs over the next 3 years. Like, I just think we're in some interesting trouble, and I'm trying to find my way of speaking up about that. But back to the point I'm trying to make is when I established psychological parameters for what planets mean, I got better as an astrologer. So when the sun is doing anything, I talk about your conscious awareness so that I'm not talking about, or I'm not using language that would make somebody who's got sun in Aries that I'm talking about all the fucking Aries in the world. Like it's like, that's the problem with overemphasizing sun sign in astrology is that, if Pluto's moving through Capricorn and into Aquarius, and you talk about Leo suns receiving an opposition from Pluto and Aquarius, well, that's going to happen to me in 20 years because my sun's at 29 and 30. The last degrees of Leo. So when I speak about sun sign, it's all not sun sign, but sun transit, solar transits, it's conscious awareness. When it's the moon, it's about unconscious, that Mercury, it's about perceptions. So I use psychological parameters to describe what a planet represents so that the person who's listening or reading what I'm offering is thinking about their psychology, not about Will Smith.
I think one of the really interesting things that I think astrology does for us, and you've kind of just put this into focus for me a little bit, is it allows us to operate a little bit on more of an even playing field, because there are like Sun Cancer people that are, younger than you that haven't had as much life experience, but have had this Pluto opposition that you're about to experience. And so it allows us to relate to people of all different like walks of life and all different levels of experience. And I think that's like really powerful. It's something that we forget about a lot.
Yes.
I had that realization with someone recently where I was like, oh, they've been having Pluto conjunct everything in their chart recently. And that's like maybe a newer thing for them, but like I've had that.
Oh, you've had that for a while.
Yeah. It's like I've had that too. And now I have to respect this person as someone who's also been having Pluto transits. Dude, like
I have a friend who's 29 that I have a kind of an intimate connection with. So I know a lot about like his life. I have another friend who is much older. She's actually a colleague. People might have heard of her, Colette Barron-Reed. Well, these two people have the same birthday, 30-something years apart. So they were both going through Pluto opposing their sun at exactly the same time about 2 years ago. And so I would do videos with Colette every month in her sort of circle and talk about like we're friends. So we talk about what's going on with her. And of course, I'm talking to Ed, on a regular basis. It was so interesting to see the difference between the generational shift of what's a 29-year-old experiencing with Pluto opposing their sun and what's the 60-year-old person experiencing of the exact same transit.
Yeah, like it's like sharing rising signs too, or anything where it's like, yeah, like I know by just looking at your chart, you've had your second Saturn return, which I would guess is probably different from your first Saturn return. How was that for you?
Well, it was very, very uncomfortable. Really difficult year last year. And it was interesting because in my first Saturn return, I hadn't become an astrologer yet, but I was well versed in astrology enough to know that I was going through it. And I can remember calling Abby Starr, who's my friend who was an astrologer, who told me about my Saturn. It's like, is it over yet? Is it over yet? And I was so confused at 29 about what I was supposed to do. I wanted to be an actor from the time I was 8 years old. And at 25, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot do this. But I felt like I knew there was something that I was supposed to do, but I didn't get to it till years later. So my first Saturn return was just brutal from an existential place. What was lovely about the second Saturn return.
So Aquarian also just have for Aquarius Saturn, big back to because also I don't know if we've dropped the full Leo Sun here, Libra Moon, Sag Rising, just the big big picture
that's
sort
my
of stuff.
Triangle, lots of fire and air. This second Saturn return, I am so fully actualized and so embodied. Like I know who I am in every inch of me. There has been nothing unexplored. And that was true before moving into my second Saturn return. So I would have these days last year where I would feel like I was just in a steel and concrete like corset. And I would feel the squeeze. And I would say out loud, I'm free. And I wasn't saying I'm free in a beseeching way. Like I want to feel free. I felt free. Yet I was feeling the squeeze of the Saturn return. So if we use my language of Saturn as the great teacher, what was happening in those moments was I was fully recognizing my freedom from all of the work done to clear out the detritus of the wound and the ancestral stuff, so that I recognized I was in a teacher moment of I got to be still. I can't move. I gotta, it's like a 750 questionnaire. I got to answer every question with a little pencil and fill in every fucking little, because I'm in my Saturn return. But there was never a moment where I doubted the power of the last 30 years since my first Saturn return.
Wow. Selfish pivot, only because I know you have our charts and you mentioned it before we started recording, and we like to indulge ourselves. I don't even know if I have a question, but what came to me,
I have something to say.
Yes, say it.
There it
Tell
is.
us.
First thing I noticed is that all three of you have world axis points in your chart. And that's rare. 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Libra, and 0 Capricorn have this exaltation of degree points because they represent the solstices and the equinoxes. And so they're called world axis points. And what I have found is that anybody with a world axis point is going to have some connection to the greater world at large. It doesn't guarantee that it's positive or fame or anything. It just means there's some, and my funniest example of this was back in the OJ trial days. I sat with a woman who had like Jupiter at 0 Cancer. So expansion at a world axis point. And I don't know how I would have gotten her to prompt, ask the right question, but she basically hadn't left her house because she couldn't stop watching the freaking trial.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a world axis point. She was obsessed with something that was happening in the outer world. She couldn't pull from it because it was Jupiter in Cancer, and there was a compelling story to watch. But I noticed that you've got 3 women who are collaborating in something that is a public display of your ideas. And so that every one of you, so yeah, Lisa, your Uranus is at 0 degrees of Capricorn. Steve,
we lost you.
I lost my video. Well, that's such a pretty picture. You want people.
I know. It's like we don't mind
love
looking.
that pic.
They don't mind the thirst trap.
We love the pic and the story behind
Stevie,
it.
You've got 0 Aries, 0 Libra as your Imam Coli, median Coli, your foundational axis. That's huge. And Julia, your nodes are at the same axis. It certainly means that Julia and Stevie are like, you do this in every life because one's nodes is connected to the other one's angles. And all of you have this sort of consciousness of we can reach the world at large so that you come together as a triumvirate and you all have a consciousness within your chart that says, yes, I can reach the world at large. I'm not saying no to that. Then the size of your ministry is not describable by your chart. You can have a chart that says, I have a ministry and it's 5 people wide. And that's something that I learned actually on social media, where I remember having a challenge with the idea of getting more public in social media. And I was being told I had to from the people who were telling me how to expand my business. I used to see this woman on Facebook. I'm not going to say her name, but she would do lives all the time. And maybe 2 people were watching. And I thought, I can't have that happen. Like, I can't do a live and have 2 people watch. My little ego, honey.
No, that sounds like
Sun, Leo, Venus. We don't do 2 people. Without challenge, right? And then one day I clicked to watch to see what this woman was offering. She's playing the guitar. It's like, oh, she could not sing. But I had a profound, beautiful moment with her about this whole thing of like, wait a minute. I could see how much joy she was having in her experience. Bona fide. Like, there it was. You couldn't mistake that. She was in joy. And there were 2 or 3 or 4 people who were her ministry, who were receiving her joy. And maybe there were 20 and they only showed up 2 at a time, right? But I got something in that moment. It's like, her ministry's her ministry. My ministry's my ministry. And what also changed for me in that moment was, I don't give a shit how big my ministry is. I want it to be as big as it can get. That I'm clear about. But I have no attachment to what the size of it is, because I now fully understand that's preordained. Like,
wow.
Who we serve and how many is just part of our karma and our soul's calling. And the chart's not going to tell you whether yours is big or small. Just, do you have gifts or not? And are you demanded to share them in service to the world? And that was a big freeing moment for me. It allowed me to be more ambitious with expanding my business because I was no longer attached to the fears associated with what if it's not big enough for my ego and the ego problems of what if it's not big enough for my ego, and just let that go.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as long as there's enough cash coming in for what I offer the world so that I can eat well and have nice sheets to sleep on, that's my measure of abundance.
Yeah.
So here's our promo code for the nice sheets. You guys have all been. Do we sell that?
Do we? I don't know.
I can't remember. Like, did we show enough sheets? But no, I think that it just came to mind of that quality versus quantity. Even though of course there's a quantity that you hope it's not two. But I mean, shit. What if these are two like hella devoted followers who are
That's
like,
right. That's
yes,
right.
mommy, you are my queen. Like, well, it's even in social media now. We see that having a fuck ton of followers doesn't mean you have a fuck ton of people that actually come to your events or come to workshops or come to the things. That is
right. And
or even the difference between having like a ministry, like you said, versus being beholden now to millions of people who are, demanding that you do a thing versus doing something that you enjoy doing, sharing something that you feel called to share, as opposed to now, having another like thing that you are enslaved to.
Whoa.
True story.
I love that. Okay. World access points. I'm in. We're open to the realm and globe. I was very intrigued. What I was saying before too is that like that forgiveness with Venus, I thought was just a really interesting concept that we don't hear all the time. I think Venus is always just related to the good and love. I want this and love and money and aesthetics versus the value that comes back to the value things.
Somebody in the class said, I keep Facebook groups for my classes so that people who are open to Facebook will join the community. I don't know. I cannot stand the fact that my business is dependent upon Facebook and Instagram. I'm doing my utmost to change that. She was like, well, wait a minute. I always thought that the moon was about our emotions. It's like, no, we got to distinguish. The moon is about your unconscious, and our feelings respond so much to unconscious impulses that the moon might be mistaken for the emotional planet because we feel things as the moon moves, but our emotional body is driven by Venus. How we feel and how we process those emotions is pure Venus. When we feel emotions and how deeply we do is the moon. But it is the emotional body and Venus that are directly related. And you being able to grab on to something that hurt you and not let go is a Venus thing. And letting it open up and freely leave you through forgiveness is a Venus thing. And this is also where psychology helps me parse out how I approach astrology by separating these two things and saying the unconscious moon is different than the emotional body Venus.
So talk to me a little bit about dreams, because I feel like this is an interesting, I know I have had this feeling, and I'm sure many, many people have, where you have a dream about something and you wake up feeling like how the dream felt. And I think it gets put in a lot of like stand-up comedians bits where it's like, my girlfriend had a dream I cheated on her, and now she's mad at me or whatever. But it also happens.
You don't have to call me out like that, Lisa. Like, that's my like everyday life.
I don't talk about that on stage, but I think like it happens a lot where we'll have like a bad dream and wake up gloomy, or have a very peaceful dream and wake up in this kind of like groggy state. So talk to me a little bit about dreams, the unconscious, the waking up, the physical, all of those things.
First though, are you a stand-up comedian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cancer rising. What's that like?
Stevie's the Cancer rising. I'm the Taurus rising. Yeah.
Julia and Lisa are stand-ups. I'm a sit-down comedian.
But I'm a Cancer moon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mars in Aquarius conjuncture.
Yeah. Up there causing problems.
And doing your own unique little thing, right?
Yeah.
So I love that we went from a talk about the emotional body Venus and the moon as a separate thing to lead into this question, because dreams are a full function of dropping into the unconscious, and then we wake up, our conscious mind lights up, and we're back forced to live and dwell in our conscious awareness, though we can probably all agree the unconscious state is where all the juice is and where all the action is. But in our dream state, when the conscious mind is asleep, it's pure moon, it's pure unconscious, so that when we have an experience while we're in that realm and then come into wakefulness, it's our unconscious that says, I'm feeling this way because I just came out of an experience that for the unconscious is just as alive and vibrant as our waking life experience is to our conscious mind. So in some ways, as we wake up, what's happening in the underbelly of us is much richer, stronger, and bleeds into the experience that we have when we wake up. In astrological terms, as we're sleeping and dreaming, we're in the moon consciousness, but as we wake and our emotional body lights up, Venus says, hey, moon, what you feeling? Well, we just went to the candy store in the dream. It's like, okay, I'll feel good. It's like, hey, moon, what you feeling? Oh my God, it was a nightmare. We were being chased. Okay, we're tired and anxious. Thank you.
Wow, would you say that last night? I am tired and anxious. Thank you for putting it in such simple terms for me. Do you ever work or do you work with lucid dreaming? Do you ever work towards astral projection, those kind of things?
Funny. I just finishing up a book that's coming out next year called Psychic Dreamer, exploring the relationship between intuitions and dreams. And it's all about mystical dream experiences, which I had to mostly research, meaning I had to get people to tell me their experiences, because I don't organically have a lot of lucid dreams. So I've never been driven or drawn to nurture or make them occur. And for decades, I've watched the world be like, we want to learn lucid dreaming. You see books and workshops about it all over the place. And I don't know why I personally have never been drawn to follow it myself for my own edification. But I love exploring what other people's experiences of it, and then textualizing, explaining it, talking about the brain and DMT and all of the physiological things that happen that increase our mystical experiences. I have had 2 lucid dream experiences in my life that were 12 out of 10. In terms of numinous life experiences. You know, we all have a handful of it. It's like, oh my God, these things happened in life and it blew my mind. One of them was the lucid dream in which I was as awake as I am now. Not like dreaming, oh, I'm dreaming. Like, oh, okay, I'm up, I'm awake, I'm sitting in my living room, but I know it's nighttime. I know that I'm sleeping and I'm in the other room, and I'm telling you exactly like this moment.
Whoa.
Crazy. And then I had another one a few years later where, now this was not quite as vibrant as the other one, where I was 100% in my waking sensation. This one had like a sepia tone. Everything was a little bit brown, but still awake, alive, and alert. And I came up to a picnic table, and there were 5 other men sitting around at the picnic table. And I just came up to them and I said, you guys know we're all dreaming, right? That we're dreaming. And they were like, oh, yeah, come on in, sit down. And that was it. The dream was over. I got to tell you, those 2 experiences rocked my world and blew my mind. And still, I don't have any desire to chase it or to nurture it or to have it again. It was enough to have a couple of experiences. And I'm not a natural, organic lucid dreamer that I've met. Like, I've met countless dozens of people who, just by virtue of being alive, cannot help but having a plethora of lucid dreams. I think it's awful fun, but I just personally haven't been drawn to have more of them, or even astral projecting. I've had so many phenomena with my body, and just have never been like, oh, well, let's make more of this happen. But if someone comes to me and they're like, I want to have more of this happen, I'm like, okay, here's what you could do. Here's what you could do. And I sort of get excited. Are you a natural lucid dreamer, Lisa?
I have a few times. It would happen more when I was young. I have dreams. I talk about this, I feel like, all the time on the podcast, but I have dreams and nightmares all the time. And so in high school, when I first,
honey, you're barely even on the planet.
I know.
Mercury, Jupiter in the 12th house. Of course, you have dreams constantly. You're probably dreaming right now. You're probably
it's hard to be here.
having a dream. You're doing the podcast with.
I have a very.
I hope I pushed record in Lisa's dream.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Did she accept the Zoom?
Yes.
Is the question in the.
I had a teacher in high school that was the first person who introduced the concept to our class.
Oh, wow.
And so I started trying to do it, but I was a teenager and like obviously not doing it in a safe or like well-researched way. And I've just started again using tools at night that like certain essential oil things, like putting the scent at nighttime, or crystals or things that, and I've found that it makes my sleep a little bit more peaceful because I struggle with nightmares. So I am leaning towards it again. I don't know if it's something I'm really ready to like dive headfirst into. I know that I can. I know that there are certain strategies that I can take. It does feel a little bit like I don't get rest when I do it. So there's
there's
act.
a tremendous amount of process that's happening in REM sleep that is about freeing the brain of metabolic waste that shows up as restfulness or tiredness in the morning. If there hasn't been enough of what's happening is that the cells shrink a little bit, the fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid fills in the spaces. When the cells squeeze back into the regular shape again, they excise the metabolic waste into the spaces in between. It goes out to the blood-brain barrier. And if you are not going into the deep sleep after REM and really allowing that to happen fully, you wake up tired. And talk about a setup for spectacular dream-based spiritual expansion. You ain't done with what your dream life can show you. And I'm speaking specifically of your Neptune and your Jupiter in a trine. So that Jupiter is in your 12th house of the unconscious. So you really do have a kind of almost literal, I'm more expansive in my sleeping than anywhere, but that it harmonizes with your dream planet of Neptune. And because your Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus in that Capricorn conjunction are in the 8th house in your chart, it means you're going to keep shedding skins throughout the rest of your life with regard to how you relate to your spiritual sensibilities, how you process your Saturn lessons, and how you wake up to higher levels from your Uranus experiences. That tells me that there'll be many versions of you as you age throughout your life. And every time you upgrade one sense of your spiritual toolkit, it will impact your dreams. But honor that thing about the, tiredness, honey, because
I do. Venus and Gemini rules my chart. So I do experiment. I do a lot of these kind of spiritual experiments right now. I'm really into yoga nidra meditation. Sometimes I just get super into incense. It ebbs and flows.
Listen, I made a lifestyle out of making sure that I had enough tools in my box to meet my need for stimulation. And Sagittarius rising. It's like, one way does not work for me.
Yeah.
Many ways work for me because I need choice.
Mm-hmm. I feel like dreams, I always go I don't dream. And I think that's like a Capricorn moon thing. But I also have Neptune on the IC. And so I do dream, but I also feel like all my dreams are, I don't know if this is technically lucid dreaming, but I feel like I always know that I'm dreaming no matter what.
No matter what. Okay.
Yeah. that I've never had a dream where I was like, that was so like, I wasn't like, hey girl, this is a dream. So like, let it happen. Whatever's going on, like, know that this isn't real. You can wake up at any time, but let this movie play.
Very Neptune and Capricorn. It's like, yeah, we're in a spiritual place, but we can climb right out of it. And the structure will, listen, I think that, that having only your south node of the moon in your 12th house does make your unconscious sensibility something that's natural and organic for you. South node is, we're familiar with things that we come in. And it also just means that the minute you're sort of looking at your north node, that what's in the south is less relevant, right? So if I look at your chart, I look at that north node in Aries in the 6th house, and I'm just interested in you making sure that you're in some kind of a practice every freaking day to make sure that your waking life has you connected to spirit and being of service to others. And I would say, don't worry about your dreams, honey.
Yeah. Thank you.
Firing up your practice.
This is a random mention, and I know we'll wrap up shortly, but I had this happened for the first time. I dream quite frequently. Usually I'm like chewing out my enemies, like the things I wanted to say, but then, I take the higher road in this new therapized version of myself. But this happened for the first time this week. I've had like very limited dreams this week, but I like woke up, I looked across the room, and I saw an object that was just in my dream, but in the room. And it was like basically like the Blair Witch wooden stick thing, but more like a ball. It looked like an ornament ye old witch might have made that would hang in her home. And all the dream was waking up, seeing it in my room and going, that was just in my dream. And then like blinking and it was gone. And I was like, that's never happened to me ever before. So that was a fun new dream phenomenon that I don't know if anyone's ever had anything like that before. But.
And when I hear that story and I then look at your chart, I notice this powerful connection between Mars in Cancer in your 12th house, trining your north node in Pisces in the 9th. So what you just had was an experience of bringing something out of the etheric world and into the physical world. Mars in Cancer 12th house, trining Pisces North Node. I think I'm going to go down and say you're entering a new level of being able to sort of make manifest in the three-dimensional world things that are part of your multidimensional world based on this trine in your chart. I mean, I'm not talking about wacky things. You're not...
I won't be making witch balls,
not witch ornaments.
I
mean,
I'm
not.
I don't know. So dramatic and authoritative in my language. I'm saying when I look at, when I talk to Julia and she says what she says about her dream state, like her chart reflects that. And your chart reflects something interesting about just you telling me a story that you had a physical manifestation or ersatz physical manifestation dream thing. Then I look at this trine in your chart and absolutely would look at the chart and say, not only are you a deep and powerful and important dreamer, things that happen in your dreaming and or any unconscious experiences naturally push you forward in the direction of your dharma, which for you is very specifically about a kind of high-minded spiritual trek. 9th house, Pisces. You are here to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, 9th house, about what spirit is like made manifest on the earth, Pisces.
Yeah, with Saturn there right now too, that feels very literal. Like or literally actually, physical.
Literal. Saturn is demanding. He's saying, are you ready now? Are you ready now? We got to step up. We got to step up.
It's funny because I feel like that's come up with friends a lot this week about tapping into psychic energy, and Kundalini awakenings has been like hot on the tip of the tongues of like, it is like, I don't know me even mean this, but I have to say it's like, it's scary to go there. It's like, oh my God. Cause I think maybe it's old Catholic school stuff is like, can I turn this off? Like, are you
First of
able
all,
to then
if
put the
you-
boundary and get out, you know?
If you have old Catholic school sort of exposure, do not underestimate that. Your mind can be as open as it is, and your body has messages that say that's bad, that's dangerous, don't go there.
Yeah.
And you will have longer to unwrap those than someone who did not have a Catholic,
torture and torment and
we'll
all
call
the
it
fun
an
stuff.
indoctrination.
Yes. If we have time, we'll play a quick game that we always end with guests.
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you familiar with Marry, Fuck, Kill as a game?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, I've never been asked to play this game. God.
Okay.
Ever?
And as we
Oh.
well,
Okay.
here we go. We're about to do 2 quick rounds. What we do is we have celebrities who share your big 3. So these we'll do one with Leo Sun, Libra Moon celebs, and then a Leo Sun, Sag rising group. So let's start with, and again, I have to say this for the woo people. We're not actually killing anyone. We're not actually fucking. This is a game. It's a game.
It's a game.
It's a game. This is for fun. Anyways, Leo Sun, Libra Moons. It's always an interesting group. We got Edward Norton, Joe Rogan, and Meghan Markle.
Libra Moon is Joe Rogan? Wow.
I get
Sorry.
That makes sense.
I mean, that makes sense.
Joe
Edward
Rogan.
Norton, Joe Rogan, and Meghan Markle. Princess.
Meghan Markle.
What a crew.
I'm going to marry Meghan Markle. I'm going to fuck Ed Norton. And I guess I'm just going to kill Joe Rogan.
I think that's my answer too. I think that's a great answer.
Does it count that I want to fuck Ed Norton because he's just so fuckable?
He's
Of
hot.
course.
Yes,
He's more
that's-
fuckable
why-
than Joe
what-
Rogan. Listen,
Why else would
Joe
you
Rogan,
fuck?
I'm choosing because, like, I'm not gonna fuck Meghan Markle because I haven't fucked a woman since I was 21. Like,
Hey,
sure.
like we
Yeah.
did that. I'd fuck Joe Rogan. Like, if
To get on the pod, or that's the way I would probably
he would
do
have
it.
to be like, Michael, I'm begging you to fuck me. And I would fuck him because he's not unsexy, but I'm not always.
But he's
crazy
not
about
Ed Norton.
He's not Ed Norton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, no need
And-
to explain wanting to fuck Ed Norton on this podcast. Let me tell you that.
And I should say, I am getting conflicting now that you've raised my Libra Moon Queen has raised the report of, or excuse me, my Libra Rising Queen has raised the report. He might be a Scorpio Moon. It's a
Okay.
date. We don't have the exact time, so
Okay.
it could change.
Oh,
But
but
let's
hey.
play. We'll still play as Libra Moon.
I think I do. Once you said that, though, I would make a case for Libra Moon. Scorpio Moon made sense. The like,
I don't know.
but I
In
think
an obvious sort of way.
I think Libra,
Okay.
certainly for this game. I think sometimes there's a right answer, and I do think that you have chosen the right
Yeah.
The right answer.
answer,
All right.
Yes.
which is marry Megan, fuck Ed, kill Joe.
Kill Joe. We're
You
done.
know,
That's
there is a part of me that is considering marrying Joe for the money.
Okay.
But
Yeah, because I don't know if the Markles actually after that docu, I'm like, do they have any cash? I don't know. Like they
No, I would not want to marry her for the cash. I would marry her
for the Montecito experience.
100.
I like what the two of them are doing with their relationship and their place, right? So I see her as somebody who partners in a conscious way. That's why I would marry her.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it would be hard to be around Joe Rogan all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
I think Megan's definitely someone who feels a little bit more amicable and
There you
maybe
go.
a little more fun to. I'm sure Joe Rogan's fun, but yeah.
I think she's
Yeah.
Cancer rising too with the Cancer Mars. Just for more fun facts for that. Yeah, she's like she's wifey.
She's
Yeah.
wifey and she's
Also,
ugly.
huge fan of Suits. Loved Suits.
Suits was
and-
great. Suits was
I mean,
great.
I think you did
Yeah.
land on the right answer. That doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it's like you answered it
All right, I'm
correctly.
glad
That's
all right.
and then
we're gonna do
quick-
some more, right? Yes.
yes. We have
Yeah.
one more
Last one.
round.
All right, yay.
Is Leo Sun Sagittarius rising. Again, it's harder to find celebs with their risings, but alas, let's do all men edition because we all fuck men here.
We all
So
fuck men here.
let's go Sean Penn,
Hmm.
Robert Plant, and Bo Burnham. So these are Leo suns, Sagittarius rising.
Wow.
Kind of like a fuckboy mix, like a soft fuckboy.
Although
mix.
I think maybe Robert Plant to marry.
Yeah.
For
he's on tour a lot with Alison Krauss.
Yeah, well,
like,
I was thinking for the music.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be Mrs. Plant. That sounds nice.
The first one, I think he's the fuck.
Sean Penn.
Yeah.
Also problematic, can be a problematic king, but
right. So, but he certainly looks a little bit like Sex on a Stick. I mean, I think he'd be.
Sean Penn's hot.
Fuck. He's a hot fuck. Like he's.
And also, we can time travel. Just a heads up. So if you're like, ooh, Spicoli, Sean Penn, like that's my guy. For me, I would say that'd be my.
We can time travel. Oh.
Yeah, we can time travel.
There's no
the rules.
The only rules are fuck, marry, and kill. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll fuck Sean Penn, marry Robert Plant, and I don't really know who Bo Burnham is. I've heard the name. Honey, I'm 59 years
That's
old.
okay.
That's fair. That's fair. That's also into your consideration.
So he's dead now, so we don't care.
He's gone.
Okay.
So
gone too soon.
I don't actually
gone too soon.
More like go Burnham. You know.
But wait a minute, have I made a mistake because I don't know?
He's hot, so
he's it
might be worth a quick Google image, but he is hot. But like, this is a bunch of strong contenders right now for this.
He's
round.
a comedian, a multi-hyphenate performer,
singer,
director,
YouTuber,
creator.
He directed Eighth Grade, which got a lot of good buzz. He's like a hot art boy comedian. He's tall. I know that.
Yeah. Wow.
If that moves the needle for me,
I think.
Him. He's sort of a young guy.
Yeah.
Sort of a young guy.
Yeah.
But like a smart comic.
Yeah.
Sensitive.
He's a bit of like a wonderkind, thing. Had a pretty meteoric rise early on, and now has been doing a little bit more stuff. But
I know this guy. No, thank you. I'm glad I looked him up. You know what? I think I'm still going to kill him.
That's fair.
Okay.
Because he's a little neurotic. And, so since I'm not going to fuck him, I don't want to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm pretty committed to fucking Sean Penn.
Yeah.
So if I'm committed to fucking Sean Penn, then I got to kill Bo because I'd rather marry the musician than the comedian.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, being made to laugh. I'm on the fence.
Robert might have a sense of humor. We don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Really I think you might be laughing more Robert Plant than Bo Burnham. I don't know. This
to me, I think personally, I have to kill Robert Plant. I used to date a guy that was in a Led Zeppelin cover band, and it's too triggering for me. Mm-hmm. So that has to go. Unfortunately,
do you know what it was called?
I do, and I won't say it on here.
Okay, they don't get free press in this house.
Also, I think at a different time that would have been a different answer, but for now, it's not working. I think I'll marry Bo, and I think I will fuck Sean Penn. He used to be my husband's boss, so.
Whoa.
Well,
okay. We're a lot of fucking Sean Penn. Listen, there's also just like the age thing.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Plant is, old. Well, let's just kill him, and
he's had a life.
He's had a life, and then I'll marry the comedian, and like we'll send him into therapy.
Okay, I think I will fuck. No, it all changed in 1 second. I'm gonna marry Robert Plant, but like time traveling 70s, like the stuffed crotch, like really good. And hey, he might die off soon, and then I get the whole house to myself. I'll have like the residuals coming in, all in my name. We'll take it.
Okay.
Pluto's now moving through my 8th house. This will be great. And I'm gonna kill Sean Penn. Someone has to do it, and then I think I'll fuck Bo Burnham because I think he is technically hot.
Can you kill him after I fuck him?
Yeah. That'll be the ritual. That will be the ritual. That is, if
I love it.
That's
then
hot.
Come with me.
That's right, baby. First me, then her.
The petite mort into the true.
That's right, true mort.
The true mort. Wow. Okay, I'm having a really hard time with this one. I don't know why. I can't decide if I want to marry Robert Plant or Bo Burnham. Because I don't really want to fuck Bo Burnham. I do want to fuck Robert Plant. I do want to fuck Sean Penn.
Who's marriage material?
I know, but that's what I mean. Where I'm like, I'm definitely not marrying Sean Penn. Obviously. But
I'm like, who is he married to?
I don't think anybody currently. He's had Robin.
Demons.
Robin Wright, I believe, was last.
Oh, he had a pandemic marriage and divorce. 2020 married, 2022.
Okay,
really?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think I'm gonna marry Robert Plant.
Okay.
Kill Bo. Fuck Sean.
Kill Bo. Fuck Sean. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Almost the universal answer.
That was sorry. Nothing personal. But
no, these were
great.
Gotta
go. That was fun. It was a fun
Sometimes
exercise.
we don't get good options in this game, and these were all really good options for both rounds. So
I'm happy.
Perfect. Well, what a time to be alive.
Thanks you for coming on. So much. We mentioned your podcast, Conscious Embodiment.
Yeah,
that comes out weekly.
Astrology with Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. Yeah, weekly Sunday nights at midnight.
Obviously,
we'll put links to everything.
If you are not following Red Robe Astrology on the daily, do that. Smash that follow. Instagram, TikTok. You also mentioned that there's some teaching upcoming.
Yeah, I've got my next class is coming in May 6th, the second weekend in May. I think. Well, yeah. May 6th for 4 weeks. I do these self-investigation classes. I do deep work doing shadow work for people. They are 4-week classes, lots of homework, 2-hour live classes that people sometimes use the recording to work with. My classes are no joke. These are not light-hearted classes. These are like, get ready to, rock and roll with your shadow. But what I created was a series of classes I call Going Deeper, where we use myths and fairy tales to contextualize a dive into self-exploration. So this class is Selkie. That's the Scottish myth of the seal woman who gives up her pelt to have human love. So it's a wonderful story to look at: imposter syndrome, authenticity, how we give ourselves away in relationship to keep love, but we destroy ourselves. So all those kinds of issues can be explored with Selkie. And then Sleeping Beauty is all about letting us look at the impact of ideas about romantic love that we're fed as children that then freaking screw us up in our adult life. The idea of being asleep as opposed to being awake is a great theme there, just about, exploring ways in which we seek to wake ourselves up. And so there's so much richness when we use myths and fairy tales, because we've been doing that for thousands of years. That's why we have myths and fairy tales, to contextualize our inner process. So that class is starting the second week in May. So I'd love some of your folks to join me if you want to dive using, beautiful images to work with your unconscious.
Wonderful. And where can people sign up for your class?
michaellennox.com is my website. There's all of the stuff that I offer, including my daily Astro Alert subscription, where I talk about the daily astrology, all of my classes. I will be teaching so much about astrology probably in the summer. I have a whole bunch of classes that are already in the can of some of my advanced astrology, but I'm going to be teaching my Astrology 101 class anew. I did one 5 years ago, but I'm retiring that, and I'm for technical reasons. At any rate, probably July or August, a lot of astrology teaching will launch. But the process classes, I do about once every 5 weeks, a new class.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, not an ad. I'm not a sponsored host. Took a class with Michael, and it was great. Like I needed it then. So you have so many different options that might resonate with our listeners of where they're at. So, I know we're a woo bunch here, and we have a lot of therapists who listen too. And I think they're always digging in for the more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
This was
Thank you. So grateful.
And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.